All right, everybody, thanks for joining in. This is the second part in our pandemic series. And I don't know, we haven't discussed it yet, so I don't know if this is going to be a continuing thing. It's kind of a pain in the ass, actually, to be putting up 2 episodes a week. But we'll see how the response goes from the first 2, and maybe we'll squeeze in maybe another one. Maybe we'll take a week off and then squeeze one in. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But this week, we're continuing on. Everybody is probably still in lockdown, depending on where you live at. And what better topic to cover in the middle of a pandemic than a movie called Pandemic? And we are talking about 2016's Pandemic.
Yeah, this was this recommended by somebody? Or did you just found this on your own?
This was one of those ones we were just kind of going back and forth, and I actually had inadvertently popped open the Prime Video app on my phone, and this one was like on the screen and then the cover picture that was there, or the thumbnail that was there, was, I'm assuming, which was probably the main poster art for this, the guy with like the 2 guns in his hands and the axe strapped to his back.
Right.
And like the burning buildings. And I was like, that looks awesome. And it's called Pandemic. So I don't know what it's about. Let's do that one.
It was, perfect, right, for this time. How many times did you see it? Let me put it that way.
I just watched it once.
Yeah, I did too. I only watched it once, and that was, what did I see it? A couple of days ago, I think it was. So it wasn't like some of the films we've talked about a lot were, well, some of our classic films where you and I have seen millions and millions of times and finally reviewed it. So we're both going in kind of like with that, okay, one viewing under our belt kind of thing. And I should go ahead and say this, like, I'll be honest with you, I am not, like I've said this before about like these type of movies, zombie movies, outbreaks and virus movies, and these type of horror films. These just aren't my thing. They just never were my thing. I've never been a huge fan of like 28 Days Later and I, Legend and Dawn of the Dead. And I mean, I like the original Dawn of the Dead for what it is, but again, this type of thing just isn't really my cup of tea. So I want to just kind of get that out there before we begin the talking about the film.
Well, I will say the one thing with this particular movie is I wish I would have popped open the Wikipedia page before I suggested it to you, or maybe not even necessarily before I suggested it to you, but before I watched it at least. So that way I would have had a little time to at least mentally prepare for what was about to happen. And the reason why I say that is because the opening to the Wikipedia page for Pandemic pretty much sums it up. And it reads, Pandemic is a 2016 American science fiction thriller film directed by John Suits and written by Dustin Benson. Rachel Nichols stars as a doctor who leads a group to find survivors of a worldwide pandemic. But this next line is the one that I wish I would have seen before I suggested us covering this movie. The film is shot in a first-person POV, which is point of view, similar to first-person shooter video games. And now I don't know if just that statement alone would have like deterred me from wanting to watch it, because I probably would have been like, oh, first person, I wonder how they did that. So then I probably would have been like, oh, well, we should probably watch it anyway, because I'm kind of really interested to see how they did that. But man, well, here's the first, before we even get to that, this is one thing, because I did ask you the other day, or I told you to have your son watch at least one of the action sequences in the movie. Did you happen to do that?
Yeah, I did. And I said, hey, come check this out for a minute. I think the scene that I showed him, though, was the scene with the where they're in the bus and it was like a daytime scene, and there was like a big fight, or they had to get through a bunch of these, infected people. And he was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool," and he didn't really say much about it.
Oh, really?
But then later on, there were some real intense, like you said, first person that looked exactly like Black Ops game or something, where you're seeing like the character's hands, and I was like, "Oh, I bet you that's why Shannon wanted me to ask him that." Cause it was
I have to admit, man, it was like the very first, like early on, once they got into anything, because I was like, "Oh, what the hell is this?" And it was almost disorienting to watch some of the stuff. I mean, maybe if you're used to it, you would kind of be okay with it, but man, I was like, what the hell? And because it took me a couple of sequences, and then I was like, oh, they were trying something new in this movie. They're trying to do a first person thing in this movie. And then I was like, well, I'm glad that didn't work out, because that's freaking horrible.
There were times where it kind of had it, like there were certain things I thought, like that one scene where they're hiding in, like, what is it, like oh gosh, what is it? Was it a plant or a warehouse or something? And that creature character is like trying to sniff them out, and they're wearing the suits, like the biohazard suits.
Yeah, what were they? I don't even remember. They were like in a school at one point, and then like a hospital or something.
It was like a basement or a boiler room or something. And she goes, I thought it was kind of effective, the scene where she's going up the stairs and then she gets pulled off the stairs, and like you see it in like the first person. I know it's hard, and then like you see like the monster guy, the infected character, like climbing up the stairs where obviously he pulled her off. It was just kind of a neat camera angle thing. So that one particular scene I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I will admit that this movie, like when it first starts off, because actually when it first started off, I was thinking the other thing. I was like, oh, this is going to be another found footage movie? Oh, come on. But then once I got it in a little bit, I was like, oh, wait, no, they're doing something different than found footage. And then at first I was kind of like, oh, you know what? This isn't actually that bad, because the way that they were doing it was it kept changing camera angles to be like different people's perspective. So if like one person was talking, then the focus was kind of on them, and then if somebody else was talking, then the focus was on them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was, man, once they got into those action sequences and it went into that weird, like, and they even went as far as like, you could kind of see down the barrel of the gun, and you could kind of see like the guy like cocking the gun, or like you would see like the weird like angle of like the bat kind of. I mean, it was just, man, it was rough to watch. I mean, I guess if you, like I said before, if you were playing Black Ops or whatever, I mean, I almost want to say Duke Nukem, but that's a game from when me and you were kids. But, if you're used to that, maybe it would have been like, oh, that's kind of cool. But outside of those scenes, it wasn't that bad. I mean, the story was, I don't know. The story was your typical apocalyptic, pandemic, whatever, world's going to end, and, everybody's got this weird thing going on, kind of a story.
Yeah, it was kind of like your typical dystopian type of thing. I will say though that watching this film, as soon as like it started, and it basically starts out with you're getting to know this doctor, and she's being introduced to these quarantined infected people and all this stuff, and like I was like, oh, this is just another zombie movie, it just kind of instantly kind of felt that, like, yeah. Got to sit through another zombie movie. I'm not into this, And then, but once it got going, I'm trying to think where it really started to there was a point in the story, and I think it might have been when. Well, I guess I shouldn't make any reveals because I know there's some people that haven't seen it, but there's a reveal about one of the main character, and I think around that time, I started to kind of get a little bit more hooked into the story where I was more invested in it, which I'm typically not, like I said, with these kind of films. And I was like, this is I'm kind of interested here to see where this goes. And at the end of the day, I think like the second half of the film really kind of kept my attention enough to where wasn't completely zoned out or checking my phone or anything. I was like, yeah, this is I'm following this. I get where this is going. And again, it wasn't anything original really. And the whole idea of like a character during this type like an apocalypse and infected people wanting to help save their family and find their family and get people to help in that process is again, this is nothing new. I mean, this is pretty much Dawn of the Dead, right? I mean, it's like the same storyline basically, just a few things changed up. But yeah, it kept me. I guess it kept my interest enough, despite its lack of uniqueness.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's what kind of the thought process was behind the camera work in this one. Was somebody was like, "Oh, cool, I have this story," and then somebody else was like, I mean, that story's been told 1,000 times, dude. You have to have something unique with it. And then the guy's like, "Oh, I have the uniqueness. We'll shoot it in first person. It's going to be awesome."
That probably was it. Yeah. Let's give it the video game look.
Oh, yeah. And I'm actually surprised that this is the first time we've come across this. I would assume there's other movies out there that have this similar angle to them. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I am very, very glad that it never took off. And, every movie for whatever 3 years or however long the trend would have lasted, you would have went and saw it and be like, "Oh, yeah, here's another kill scene. Gonna be first person again."
Right.
I was trying to think the other day. I mean, are there any like pandemic type movies out there that essentially don't turn into zombie movies?
The only thing that I think that comes to mind, and it wasn't a horror movie, but do you remember the movie Outbreak from the 90s?
I do. Yep.
Okay. And that was like a pandemic with Dustin Hoffman and, oh gosh, I can't think of the actress, but, and it was just like a virus.
Wasn't it Jodie Foster in that one?
No, it wasn't Jodie Foster. It was, I can't think of her name. She was pretty big in the 90s. She was in that movie with Pierce, the James Bond actor, where he's like the jewel thief and she's the cop, like trying to find him.
Oh, Rene Russo?
Rene Russo, that's it, yeah. I believe she was in there too.
So there wasn't zombies in that one?
Nope, no zombies. It was just like you'd get infected and die, basically.
Oh, okay. Because I know there's another one which I kind of steered clear from it on purpose, but the Matt Damon Contagion movie. Who's the actress? In the, I almost said Claire Danes, but that's not true. Gwyneth Paltrow. I mean, and it's almost like the same story of what's going on now. Is like Gwyneth Paltrow gets. Spoiler, guys. I mean, this movie's like 15 years old, but in Contagion, like Gwyneth Paltrow gets like sick from eating like sushi or something in like Japan or China or something, and ends up like coming back to the States, but inadvertently in her trip back from Japan, ends up contaminating or infecting, a bunch of people on the plane, and then pretty much what's happening right now in the world happened in this movie Contagion, where everybody went into like this lockdown scenario. I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it was one of those movies that I was like, I don't really want to suggest a movie that has exactly what we have going on. in it, because I think a lot of people have already watched Contagion for one thing. So that's where I was kind of like, oh, let's kind of keep it like a little bit more fun, but let's keep it like in these lockdown movies. But the more you look at these like pandemic type movies, I mean, they all pretty much, yeah, like you said, like Outbreak, and there's a couple other ones. But, you know, if you stick to the horror side of it, they all pretty much are just zombie movies.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is kind of shitty because neither one of us are really that big of zombie movie fans.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what we should do the next time we do a pandemic episode?
Yeah,
is we should do a Rob Zombie movie, and then that way... Just kidding.
There you go. Perfect. Well, neither of us are really big fans of that, so...
No. And, I mean, this movie was, like you had said, it was one of those ones where the actual, like, kind of story that was happening, and again, I'm with you, I don't want to give it away, but yeah, you kind of got invested into it a little bit, so you're like, oh, I want to see what, is that going to happen? Are they going to do and then, so it sucked you in a little bit with that, and then, you know, you would have these little action sequences, and then I'd kind of like turn away for a little bit because it didn't make me sick, but it almost kind of was just like, I can't even watch that. Like, so I can't even really tell you what happened half the time when the action stuff was going on, because even the stuff that I was watching, I had no idea what the hell they were doing. You know, outside of, oh, yep, there's a gun. Oh, that's a knife. Oh, there's a bat. You know, I mean, it was almost like what you were saying with the Quarantine movie with the one lady getting her head bashed in with the camera.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
It was like there was like some like stuff in there. You're like, oh, that's kind of hokey. What are you doing?
Yeah, there were a few things like that for sure. But I think, like, you know, ultimately with this film, as much as I am not a fan of zombie movies in general, and I wasn't going in, like, as soon as this film started, as I was watching everything kind of unfold, I was like, yeah, this isn't very original. I've seen this type of thing hundreds and hundreds of times, and there's nothing unique about this. But I will say that, again, halfway through, it sort of connected with me, and I started to get interested, which was something I wasn't expecting. And I'm not going to say this is a great movie. This is not a... This is definitely not like anything that you haven't seen before. This is like as generic a movie as you can possibly come up with. But at the same time, the fact that it did connect me a little bit made me think like, well, you know, I kind of did enjoy it. You know, a couple of beers, some popcorn. You know, why not? You know, especially at a time like this where we're all kind of stuck inside and we got to find things to do. You know, can I give this movie a good review? Can I say, why don't you give it a try if you've got nothing else to do? I'm going to go ahead and say yes with that.
Wow.
And that's, yeah, no, but coming from the perspective of this isn't anything that you have to see or need to see, certainly, you know, as a horror fan. This is one of those things, you've seen it already, but it's done just enough, I think, where it keeps your interest, and there's a few things in there that kind of carry the story in a way that I found interesting enough to keep me watching it. So for that, I'm going to have to give it a very light thumbs up.
This coming from a guy who gave Candyman a thumbs down.
Yeah, well, Candyman, going back to that one, that movie, to me, that I had a huge expectations that this was going to be like one of those films, those classics that I never watched, and then I was going to fall in love with it, and then the absolute opposite happened.
Well, I will say that outside of the weird first-person action sequences that they decided to do in this movie, that I am with you that you got to a certain point in this movie and you were like, oh, okay, so they are kind of telling a little bit of a story. They're kind of sucking us in a little bit. Now I'm a little bit invested. And yeah, at the same time, I'm like, oh, this is probably something I will never watch again. But I am stuck at home. I got nothing else going on. I need something to watch. Yeah, so if you have Amazon Prime, it's called Pandemic. And I will say the same thing I said to Mark. Make sure that if you are going to look this up, that you get the right one. This one came out in 2016, and it has the guy with like a couple guns burning buildings. He has the axe strapped to his back, which I'm not sure if that guy ever made an appearance in the movie or not. I don't think so. But it's definitely worth something to check out if you want, a little something to break up your day if you're working from home while we're all stuck at home right now. But yeah, I give this one, like you had said, kind of a soft thumbs up.
Cool.
It's right at the thing where it's almost right in the middle, but it's just a little bit more. It's not something I'll definitely. I mean, I don't think I'll ever watch this again, which is probably 3/4 of the movies we talk about on here. But yeah, I would say if you haven't done so yet, check it out.
Absolutely.